Hello and welcome to SpyHards podcast. I'm Agent Scott.
And I'm Cam the Provocateur, watching people play poker.
We'll be doing a lot of that this week because this episode is dropping as Cam and I are actually on holiday in Las Vegas, Nevada. We'll probably be out spending our life savings on poker or perhaps blackjack. So hopefully we'll be back next week. But if we're not, we've been swallowed up by the demon that is Nevada.
I can guarantee the only thing that'll hit 21 at some point will be the temperature.
I can guarantee that. It's going to get hot for sure. But, Cam, we have a very special interview this week. Who do we have joining us?
Yes, we are joined by Ivana Miličević, who played Valenka, Le Chiffre's girlfriend and collaborator in 2006's Casino Royale.
But before we get started with the interview, Cam and I wanted to make special mention of the SAG-AFTRA strike that is going on currently. Now, this interview was recorded before the strike took place, months ago now at the point of release, so it's all above board. But Cam and I just wanted to say that we are both union men personally, and we support the strike.
That's right, yes.
But we've been Texas holding on to this one for too long, Cam. It's about time we release it. So without further ado, roll that interview. And joining us on the show now, it is the one, the only, Miss Ivana Miličević. Hello, Ivana. How are you?
Hello.
The fanfare.
I'm great. Thank you. How are you guys?
Wonderful. All the better for having you here, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's great. It's the best. We have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of 007 things to get into, I think, at some point.
Yes.
Some secrets to talk about. But before we get there, I'd like to just get a feel when we have guests on the show. I was looking you up today, doing some research, getting ready for this, and looked at some of what you were doing leading into becoming an actor. I'm fascinated by sort of your rise to becoming an actor. So just to hear it from you, what inspired you to become an actor, and what was your sort of journey to get here?
Well, I was lucky enough that in my high school in Michigan, run by one of my favorite teachers I've ever had, Krista Manfredi, we had a very incredible theater program in my high school, Athens Theater Company. And we put on some really good plays. So I was always, my family is one of those families that crack up at dinner time. So lots of comedy at the dinner table when we're together. They're funny. My dad plays guitar. My brother is a musician. We were a kind of hammy family. So when the theater program was amazing, and then I got into acting, and the moment I realized that you could do that for a living, I was like, oh, well, then I'll do it. It didn't actually occur to me that people that I saw in movies and on TV, that was their job.
Right.
But the moment it did, I was like, oh, well, then I will do that. There we go. We're done. But to get there, then I moved to LA. I graduated high school early, moved to LA at 17, and I was modeling at that time. And because I would model in Chicago, because that was close to Detroit. So I'd spend my summers in Chicago. And then moved to LA and was kind of modeling, and little by little, I did stand up actually for a second, but only long enough till I found a manager and then an agent. I say only long enough because I love comedy and that is my first love, but I prefer it in a team setting, like more improv-y or sketchy. The thing I didn't love, I love stand up. But what I didn't like about being in the stand-up world was the competition. And it's hard enough in Hollywood because you're sort of competing against your own type. In the world of stand-up, everyone is equal sort of competition. I just didn't like I don't like pitting against, not that I had some bad experiences, just I like to work together. I want everyone to win.
Right.
I want for everybody.
More collaborative than sort of just you, basically.
Yeah. I like to work off of people, and I like a community in the moment. Obviously it is a community, but in the moment. So I just prefer, like I went to groundlings and things like that. And I started with kind of more comic roles. And then I started to do more badass roles and what I call eat your husband for breakfast roles, which is so funny because I'm really not like that. It's one of those things, right? Like Like the sweetheart in movies is like the total a-hole, and then the a-hole in the movies is kind of a sweetheart, if I do say so myself.
Now, to me, like stand-up seems like the most high pressure type of
It is.
performing. Yeah, like how does that compare? Like doing that, does everything post that feel like somewhat a little, not a cinch, but a little bit easier?
It is. It literally is exactly what you said. You have to have balls of steel to get up there, because people are going there for the promise of being made to laugh.
Mhm.
And, you know, you make people laugh all the time. Even not funny people do that because it's loose. But when there's pressure like that, and I've made some people laugh, and I've also died. There's been a lot of things throughout my career that have happened that have helped me have a really thick skin because of how I sort of manipulated it. And that was one of the first things, because you have to.
Right.
It's really gnarly. You're right. Everything else is kind of easier. But then, if you're testing for something and you're in a room full of executives, it's a very similar thing.
That's sort of all eyes are on you again.
But it's more forgiving. But that's, again, more forgiving. They want you to do great. They want, an audience doesn't care. They, some do. And so, you don't know, there's people that paid money for this.
Yeah. And I'm sure some people have the kind of like, well, prove yourself kind of
Absolutely.
response. Yeah.
I got heckled by comedians, but I think that they were kind of doing that because they knew I was green and knew they were kind of showing me what's what. In fact, my first manager said that he signed me because of how I dealt with the hecklers more than how, whatever, what sets do I have? I was just beginning, this was just like the beginning of the journey. And this was the 90s, like whatever, mid 90s, late 90s. So this isn't a time where it's not like today where if you're a model, that's great. They'll even give you a shot. Like models and actors were two different creatures, and they were not to cross paths. I mean, not that it didn't happen, but it wasn't welcomed. It is literally welcome today. And it wasn't then.
Right.
I would say.
Yeah, you just look at people like Zendaya and actors like that who sort of live in both worlds now in terms of acting and modeling.
I did then.
Well, running concurrently with sort of your rise to acting, we talk about spy movies every week, and we'll get to one of your spy movies in a minute. But were you watching spy movies growing up? Was that something you were interested in at all?
I think I was more interested in the whole idea of a spy than actual. I think it's like anything else. It is way less glamorous, like every job, than it. So I like the idea of, because it was the Cold War when I would have been young and impressionable. And so like Chevy Chase, Spies Like Us, I probably did get a lot of those ideas because there were Russian spies in movies a lot, and they were always hot. They were these beautiful women, these strong women. I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. But I don't know that I've actually ever played a spy. Have I? An actual spy?
Well, you popped up in Chuck.
Oh, okay.
You were a spy there.
All right.
Yeah.
I was a spy there. Yes. Very good. I'm glad that you're helping me with this.
Well, it's a few hours of research. Hopefully, it pays off over the next little bits. But I think, well, you're welcome. But I think let's talk about James Bond, because that's like the big spy credit you have on your filmography. But there are some others I do want to tackle afterwards and have a look at.
Let's tackle it all.
Head on. Let's tackle it.
Yes.
Casino Royale is a big film for a lot of spy fans, a lot of Bond fans out there.
Yes.
How did you get involved with that?
It was just a regular audition. I believe that I auditioned for Vesper Lind, and they liked me, but not for Vesper Lind. I think they wanted that character to be the woman, whatever that means, and how they were casting it, the woman that ruined him for all other women that we saw since. And I'm sure your Bond fans know that that was the only book that hadn't been made into an actual Bond movie. It was spoofed.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, right. So we had like a real book. We had an Ian Fleming book that wasn't made. This was the woman that destroyed him. right? And then I got hired to be like, I would say, the more typical version of what came after. Does that make sense? Like what I'm trying to say? Like not that I couldn't destroy people for other women, but just kidding.
Well, I'd say there's a bit more depth.
They wanted this like big contrast.
Yeah,
Ava Green is like stunning and beautiful and like such a complex. It was a complex character and a complex person, very different than the kind of roles women often have had in Bond movies, especially when you're looking back in the 60s and stuff. Wouldn't you think?
I would say so. Yeah.
I think there's a few highlights along the way that maybe could match up to Eva Green's Vesper Lynd, but on the most part, I think
absolutely. Yeah. But again, remember, this is in the timeline, sort of the first. You know, and of course there are. They. It's not like they never allowed it, but.
The stereotypical thing you're sort of saying that is like ingrained when you think of like Bond girls in air quotes. There is sort of a stereotype, an archetype you think of. Yeah,
exactly. Not that Ava Green's not that. In fact, she is like also one of them, but it
evolved.
I feel like I'm saying this wrong, and I don't mean to. I'm a giant Eastern European, and she's a beautiful French girl. Like it's
right.
I think they wanted my character to have like a mohawk and stuff, but then we ended up with this like white blonde.
Really?
And yeah, which would have been pretty cool. But I don't know if I could have. I don't know if I have the head for a mohawk. But now I kind of wish I did it.
So when you were, testing for this role, I'm just curious, who was reading with you?
I don't think I tested for it.
I'm just curious because sometimes they have Bond actors reading with them.
No, I don't. If they had an actor, I don't, because I did read for it a few times.
Yeah.
But I think it was always the casting director. And I read a lot. Like I read for it in New York one time. I read for it in LA. But then ultimately, but I never read for Valenka. I just kept reading for the Vesper Green part, whoever those girls were. But then I got Valenka, which in the script was written as a Croatian.
Oh, okay.
So they were like, let's get a real Croatian. And I was like, bonjour. And it was great because I was on that movie the whole run of the movie. The only place I didn't go, I think, was Italy and the Lake Como stuff, and Italy and Venice and all that. So it was like a long picture, and they had like 2 entire crews running the whole entirety of this. So that's like, and it was like 6 months to shoot. So imagine it was like 6 months. It's like a year to shoot, really, because they had a whole insert, special effects, stunt crew. You know all of this already.
I don't know anything. It's fine.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know nothing. Well, you mentioned the Mohawk, and one thing we found when we're speaking to people who've been involved with Bond films is characters tend to evolve from script to screen a lot of the time. Was there anything else that Valenka was pitched as that maybe didn't happen?
This is not probably what you're thinking of, but I think there was a scene where they wanted me to be taking a shower naked in the back while the men were plotting, the end of the world. And I was like, 4 living grandparents. I was like, I can't do that, which is funny given the work I'd done after my grandparents passed on. But I was like, no, you may not see my butt. Absolutely not. But that's not like some character. That's not some character point. Like they didn't want me to do very much. It was just kind of like always like floating around. I would try to like do faces. He's like, no, do nothing. So a lot of the times I was just like, for those of you who are hearing and you can't see, my face is blank.
Right. Okay, so that scene you mentioned, the nude scene they were pitching, that's that moment on the boat, I would assume. When
yes.
They're in front of the computer and you're in the background.
Yeah, I'm in the shower, but they wanted me to be, and I was like, no.
Right. In the swimsuit though, yeah.
Yeah. But I do, when I come out of the water, whatever I do first, go in the shower in my swimsuit and then I take it off.
Right.
So that second part.
I suppose bouncing off of the swimsuit thing a little bit, I had a question about that because Daniel Craig famously has his scene of jumping out of the ocean, and that's endlessly reused in many montage, as it should be.
Yes.
But you do have your own little like moment coming out of the water too.
I do.
That no one talks about.
Do they not? Well, I don't know, because they have they use that little piece for like I think a Bond perfume. So if you look up a Bond perfume, I think it's me coming out of the water. But
Really?
You're right. You're right. There should be a lot more attention to that awesome Versace bathing suit I wore. It was so good. And I was so hungry.
Was that bit shot in the Bahamas?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, it's amazing. Oh, now I'm having such like sweet memories about it. It was such a fun time and a long time ago.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm, mm. Well,
Yeah.
you mentioned sort of getting the role, but did you do anything to prepare for the role post like pre-production, sort of getting started?
Just kind of working, not really. It was, I was young, I was working out, I was trying to I was trying to be ready to be in a bathing suit. And, I think the director like just was like, yeah, no, she's there for eye candy, which I didn't appreciate, but then that's kind of what it was. It was just amazing being in that movie because it was the first time Daniel Craig was Bond.
Mm-hmm.
And it was during that time where there was just so much backlash, which it always is every time they announce a new anything.
Of course.
And he was so lovely. And he's probably arguably the best actor we ever had playing Bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In his own right, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was so lovely to be on that movie because I don't know what it was like afterwards, right? Like this is exciting and you've got so much to prove and, here we are. It's like will this work? And it was probably a magical moment compared to later on where then again it becomes a machine and then, there's no wonder. We know it's a hit. He works. It's awesome. Now what are they making? So I probably got like a charmed moment in that franchise when a new Bond comes and succeeds.
Yeah, it's actually a amazing track record when you go back and look at the franchise. It's very rare for a Bond actor to like strike out on their first movie. Like their first movie is typically very good.
Oh, is that right? Okay. I thought that I don't know all the history like you guys would, but I thought some Bonds are loved more than other Bonds throughout.
Oh, that's true.
But it's always the first one is a killer. Okay.
Yeah, it's like usually the first one out of the gate, they really managed to pull it off. It's pretty impressive. Yeah.
Okay, then. Never mind.
Well, another thing is you mentioned the swimsuit, but the outfits.
So good. Oh my God.
Amazing outfits. Amazing.
Love
Lindy
them.
Hemming did a lot of great work on that film.
Yes, she was amazing. She had boots made for me all the time, like leather. Like I had things crafted for me and my body.
Wow, okay.
Amazing. She created that beautiful palazzo pant leather jumpsuit that I wear when the car flips over. I'm always trying to kill him, and I do kill him, but he survives.
Oh, I have a question about this. Don't worry, we're getting to that.
Okay, sorry.
No. You're famous for something actually. Your character certainly is, but
I think I know where you're going with it.
Oh, well, okay. But yeah, so Lindy, so did you do some sort of prep work with her and sort of getting the outfits together and
so much between because I didn't have had that hair going in. I had like long, sandy, beachy hair. So they chopped me, bleached me, like made the plan. The makeup was pretty, simple. We didn't do any crazy makeup or anything on her, on Valenka. But yeah, with Lindy, we did a lot of fittings, a lot of designs of making of what she was going to wear and what she was going to look at with all these like cutout dresses and outfits and bathing suits. It was really fun because she's incredible.
Was there any sort of like inspiration they were trying to achieve with the look of the character? Anything they were trying to evoke?
I just think danger.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think a little bit of danger because, and then they always try to be interesting. Like I said, it would have been really cool if she had like a blonde mohawk, a platinum mohawk. Just like a dangerous person that had not a care in the world.
And also, like, she plays kind of a distraction for Le Chiffre in these card games. So walking with a mohawk would really stand out in a room as well.
Which, do we want that or don't we? Right? Because he had only eyes. It's not like I was seducing him. It wasn't like I was taking attention away from Vesper. It was a different thing. Like, I guess she had to be more aggressive because it wasn't written as "come to me."
Right.
I've got you. It wasn't that. It was I'm coming for you. It was, woman's murder, poison, but still.
And I would love to know just about, working with Mads Mikkelsen and trying to create like a dynamic between the two of you.
Easy. He is so fun and so funny. And, I ran into him in LA years ago before I did this other show, Banshee, because I think they were talking to him to be Kai Proctor. I don't know if you guys know that show, but and I was talking to him and he was exactly the same. He's jolly.
Mm.
That Dane is a jolly man. Like he's hilarious. He's got cheekbones. It's like that could serve the world. He's lovely. I believe at the time he smoked filterless cigarettes. Like he's lovely. He's such a good actor and a really funny person. Like we just had fun all the time because we were always together. And those movies take a really long time. So there's like a lot of the setups are not quick. It was shot on film. This wasn't like a just let the digital run, you know. So there was a lot of time back at base camp and in trailers.
And like, did you, between the two of you, kind of like figure out the dynamics of the relationship, or kind of like maybe even backstory that informed it, or anything?
I feel like we did. We talked about that, but it was more like joking stuff. Do you know? Like we were, I think, running through lots of scenarios like that, but it was like, and then you know, it was like joking. We weren't like, so whatever relationship we had in real time was just sort of there. I hope it's like under the thing because, you know, it wasn't our story. It wasn't,
Right.
but for to amuse ourselves, you know, but I think also, you know, I don't think it was some great love either.
Sure. Although I had a question, maybe I'll just ask it now.
Yeah.
Why did she never leave, do you think? Because there's multiple points, you know, like I want to talk about the arm scene maybe a bit later, but like after that, Le Chiffre is willing to sacrifice her. There's multiple points where there are exits that she could make. You know, Bond comes back after she tries to poison him, but she always stays. And I was curious if, you know, you had any thoughts on that, or you'd considered that at the time.
You know, at the time, with my age and everything, I'm such a romantic that for me, I probably wouldn't have even, it wouldn't have occurred to me that I would have ever left my man.
Right.
And just who I was as a young person at that point, I guess, and then in this heightened world, it would have taken a lot more for me to leave my man. Do you know? So I was just like, that was my guy. Probably she wanted him to love her. And she was like doing all the things to win his favor in my mind, probably because that's the kind of young girl I was. So I'm like, you know, when I was in a relationship, I might as well have been married.
Right.
I've learned since then, of course. But I mean, at that time, you know, relationships were really important. And if I was in one, then I was in it. So I was in it. Although, I mean, because it was like too far after, like, say, the war to be like, oh, I was some refugee or something. But that kind of would have been really cool. Like if I owed him, see, I wish I thought of this now. Or maybe I was like, if I owed him because maybe I was like some kid that he rescued, but it was just too, you know.
Yeah, because she seems like much more of a like very willing accomplice, which often in these movies, when there is kind of the villain's mistress or girlfriend or what have you, there's like they'll kind of portray a moment of like vulnerability or something like that, like a sign.
I think I tried that, and the director Martin was like, no, don't. Like I think he wanted her full danger. I wanted to, because listen, I wanted to put 17 layers into it of like, I have feelings about this and that. And it's like, nope, he needs to go the end by, we have what we're doing. That's it. I'm not looking into the morality of anything. It's black and white in a way. But I did try though. I did try to layer it up.
I think it actually works as it is, because I think it's something that actually separates your character, where it shows that she's in some ways on equal footing with him, because there's never that moment where she's going to take off. You get the sense she's as committed as he is right to the end.
And complicit.
Exactly. But then she gets burnt.
Well, they usually do.
Which isn't cool given how loyal I have been, if you ask me. But then we all get it. We all get it in the end.
Yeah.
You mentioned the sort of the pressure that Daniel was under.
I would think.
And we've had a couple of your other co-actors from the film from Casino Royale over the years, and spoken about their experiences with Daniel. And they've had different stories about what the set was like and what it was like working with Martin Campbell as well, and what that sort of vibe was on the set, because there was a lot of pressure felt by some to put out a good film. And I mean, did you feel that?
Always. No, I think I was too young. I was like, what do you mean? This is going to be great.
Yeah.
Only after you like, oh, people must have been really freaking out, because I was in my, was I? Yeah, no, I was like in my late 20s. Maybe I just turned 30. Like I was young in a lot of ways and mature in others. And I think I was just like, what do you mean? This is amazing. Everything's going to be great. Like I felt for Daniel only from a human level, because I remember the articles that came out before.
Mm.
Do you know, and all the like mean things. And this was before social media, but like, so whatever came up on Friendster, Facebook, or whatever was going on, MySpace. Like the article, yeah. I don't even know exactly. I'm trying to picture where I was when everything happened, like which apartment, which computer. But it was a serious set. Do you know? Like, but that's besides the fact that we are clearly spending money here, and that's no joke ever.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, in that way? But I was just too naive. I wasn't like, oh God, I've got to. I always want to do well, but I didn't feel the pressure on me per se.
And with Martin, obviously, you said you tried a couple of things. Martin was more like, let's just stick to the script.
Yeah.
It
wasn't a script. It was like, it would be like me, the camera passing by me on the boat or whatever. And if I would like do a look or whatever, he's like, nope. So he wanted me to be like a sociopath, kind of.
Yeah.
I didn't really have feelings about things. I only had an objective.
I was going to say, it's interesting because the film portrays you as like someone in need of help with the whole arm sequence, but you're exceedingly complicit with all of this. The way it's portrayed in the film, you want to kill Bond as much as Le Chiffre does.
Yeah, but I don't know why. I mean, it's like, I don't know why she personally does, except for that, she doesn't have a personal vendetta against it, just that we're a team and that's what's on the table. Do you know? And I'm like, I'm sure I agree with him, as opposed to, wasn't my idea, certainly. And as for the arm scene, I mean, I've got two stronger men than me who got me. Like, I have very little I can do there. It's not, right. It is a completely overpowered situation, and I'm wearing, a stretched out bathing suit, basically. So
yeah.
And that is a very intense scene. And I remember seeing it in theaters and being quite taken aback, because there's often, dangerous circumstances in Bond films, but you don't typically see something like that. I would just like to know if you had any memories about just playing that scene.
Oh, they were so nice, those guys. And I was, and then I had to betray Le Chiffre as well, right? Like, I'm like, hi, you just nothing to see here, whatever. Which probably he's mad at me. But I remember them just pushing me so that I had real terror. Now, they're not allowed to show women actually getting hurt, not since I think Bond used to slap them. Other than that, they're not allowed to show. They could be dead or whatever, but they can't show an arm getting cut or anything like that, as far as I know. Isn't that right? Like, they can be painted gold.
Right. Yeah, there's not a lot of circumstances of that happening. Yeah, past the 70s, really.
Yeah, I think it's like I think it's a thing. I think it's a thing. They do not show women getting hurt.
Right.
Women getting scared.
Well, the other thing I sort of alluded to earlier was the death blow, as it were. You are one of the small handful of people to successfully kill James Bond. Now, he is revived, but you did kill him.
I killed him. That's what somebody told me, because I didn't realize. And then I really kind of carried that as a badge of honor.
Oh, yeah.
Was that, I mean, you spoke about what it was like on set, but yeah, how does it feel to just be that person that has ended James Bond? Very early in Daniel Craig's career as well. That was right away there. That's why he never, according to the book series, that's why he never let it happen again until the end here. My goodness.
Yeah.
Listen, these movies are so beloved. It feels really special and an honor to be a part of that world. Do you know, like, because I don't have much in them, but I'm treated as if I have like a really huge piece in this puzzle, because that's how important the world is to them, and any player that is a part of this Bond universe. So obviously I don't take that lightly. It's really lucky. How many of us are there?
Yeah.
With all those Bond movies, how many of us girls have gotten to do that? Now, it's 2023. Would I rather be Bond himself? I would, than
Of course.
Which I wonder if they'll ever have a female Bond. Why not? Of course they will.
I think, this franchise has been going for 50 years. I think it's going to go forevermore and change in a lot of ways.
Exactly. Or at least there'll be no, I think it has to be a Bond. I think it has to be like an actual James Bond girl one day, or at least somebody else to have the 007.
Or even when Halle Berry did Die Another Day, they were developing a spin-off for her, which could have launched a whole other Jinx universe.
So yes, I remember that. And that would be so interesting anyway, if they did some sort of like, even if it was told in shorts, like histories of all these women, like give them more, like even as an honor, like give like some kind, it would have to be written so creatively and probably funny, but like give the backstory of these women and how they got here. Even if it still serves Bond, like it all envelopes back on that. I feel like in today's world, that's super interesting. I'd watch it.
Well, there's even been one of the Bond books where Bond doesn't feature until like the last third, and it's all from the woman's perspective, and then Bond turns up. So it's in the books.
Which one is that?
The Spy Who Loved Me.
See, but did they do it that way in the movie?
Nope. They were not allowed to actually. There was a rule at the time that they could not adapt that book the way it was done. There's some sort of weird little asterisk in the contracts that Ian Fleming, when they got the rights, so they created a whole new story. But that is a thing that exists
now, and they still can't do it as the book because that still exists. Or is there
I don't know. I'm not sure if that's changed over the years.
I don't know if that's still around.
That would be cool then, because then if we have another actual book of his, that can be done, that would be just interesting. I don't know. There's space for it now. The love is there. The fans are there. I feel like they can be even more experimental.
I think like with things like Marvel just kicking in the door for that sort of multiversey type stuff, I think you could do anything with James Bond.
Exactly.
Yeah, the sky's the limit. And the audience will go along with it, which in the past they would have said the audience is going to get lost.
No, now we know. Now we've all been sort of trained with the Marvels and the multiverses and having all the Spider-Men together. Like that we can do that. Yeah.
And audiences accept it.
Should, and they should.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that'll even get tired. Multiverse. I'm not tired by it. That's like my favorite thing about it.
I guess ask me in 5 years, but then they'll find something else to explore.
Yeah.
You mentioned sort of getting the adulation for being the lady who killed Bond in Casino Royale, and people have mentioned it to you since. Have you sensed like the legacy of this film? Have people mentioned this film to you since? Obviously we're doing it now, but do you hear Casino Royale a lot?
I think I do, because I think it's always on somewhere. Yes, it's just something that's always around. Not every day, but yeah, people even recognize me with my mask on. Okay, I'm blonde now, but even when I'm not.
Right.
Which just goes to show you how much people love this movie and Bond movies in general. I don't have that much screen time, but it's wonderful to be memorable or remembered regardless, or in spite of.
And you mentioned you don't have a lot of screen time. I had, I guess, two questions. One, how many hours did you spend watching poker happening?
A week, I think.
And was there any deleted material that you shot that just didn't wind up in the movie?
There's a little bit, but I can't remember. It wasn't very much, and there was no monologues, let me tell you that. Just like little bits of more of the same.
Okay.
And sometimes they even like shot more. I just remember a couple outfits that did not make it in the movie. Yeah.
Well, I've got two questions as well. Firstly, and it's to do with outfits. Now, there is a famous, I say famous, it's something famous that I've noticed with photo shoots that you did with the film, like publicity shots.
Yes.
And you mentioned the Bond spoof, the Casino Royale spoof earlier.
Yes.
There's a particular shot that you did that is evocative, very evocative of an Ursula Andress shot from the Bond spoof, and I wondered if that was anything you were aware of, because I could show you the photo and show
Show
you the
me it.
comparison. Right, hang on.
Yes.
For those watching at home, we'll put it on the screen. For those listening, I'm sorry. I'll put it on social media for you. So let me just share the screen and see how this works. Okay.
Yes.
Here's you.
That. Look at that dress. So good.
And let me find the other photo.
Oh, I didn't know about this Ursula Andress shot. So I wonder if they did know and they were, but I don't remember them telling me to lay on the table. That's just something I did. Because there's a table. So, I did used to model. So I'm going to work that poker table or the roulette table, whatever it is. Oh, mine was poker.
Yours was poker. Yeah.
Look at me, that.
It's something that jumped out to me years ago, and I was always curious. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it needs to be put on. They need to be compared and contrasted. That is hilarious. I've never seen. No one's ever pointed that out to me.
Well, there you go, Scott.
I did something. And I suppose my final question on Casino Royale, before we drift off into other things. Looking back on the project now, you speak about people have mentioned it to you since people have recognized you in the street from it. What's your fondest memory from making that film?
Time spent with Mads is huge on there because it was just always the travel. It was 6 months of going to the Bahamas, Prague, London. What else did we go? A lot of time in the Bahamas. I mean, you can't.
Who's going to say no to that?
And just being there with all those people and also playing poker and learning how to play poker because we had poker professionals teaching us.
Oh, wow.
Especially the guys that were around the table, because my character didn't actually play poker, but I was always there with everyone learning how to play poker. And I learned that I'm not bad at poker, but I've only got an hour in me. After an hour, I'm all in, and I don't care if I win or lose. It doesn't matter, but I could win some good hands because my poker face is very confused. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure what I have. And I'm like, I got cheat sheets. So people don't know what to make of me. So that was really fun because this is 6 months.
Yeah.
Oh, and we went to Albania. Yeah, we went to Albania too, didn't we? Carlo Vivari.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was just, we were a traveling circus. It was amazing.
And sort of speaking of the circus aspect, once you actually shoot the movie, there's a whole life of the promotional blitz that comes with James Bond movies.
Yeah, I didn't do very much.
You didn't? Beyond the photo shoots and things?
Beyond the photo shoots and things, I didn't do very much. They were also very specific on, and I should have done more. I think I don't remember what happened. I don't remember if I was doing something, like it wasn't important that I go on something. So I didn't go on a Blitz world tour. I was in London at the premiere. I don't remember what it was, but I remember I had an opportunity to, but it couldn't or something like that. I don't remember. I wish I had a story for you. But there was a Blitz for them. Oh my God. They were like, it was Avatar.
At least you got to go to the London premiere.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, but that's the only one I went to as well, I think. I think that was the only one that was.
There's usually like an LA one, but it's a lot smaller than the London one.
Yeah, no, it was just the because I live in LA and it was just the London one that I remember. It was a minute ago.
Just a few.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Attention, SpyHards, diehards. Independent podcasting, much like the spy game, requires considerable resources, whether it's research, equipment, hosting, or of course constructing a hidden moon base. We're putting out the call for your support.
That's right, the SpyHards Patreon is the home to our ever-growing lineup of Agents in the Field episodes where we decode non-spy films from your favorite spy actors, and The Debrief, where we activate our billion-dollar brains and predict how the spy movie news of today will shape tomorrow.
Cam, what have we got in our crosshairs this month?
Now is a perfect time to catch up with our July programming that we released on the Patreon. I'm talking about reviews of A Shot in the Dark and Children of Men, as well as The Debrief, where we reviewed Oppenheimer, Secret Invasion, and talked about so much more.
So accept your mission and hop in the Helmmobile today at patreon.com/SpyHards. But before Spectre agents intercept this broadcast, let's get back to the spy jinx.
And I think, jumping off of Casino Royale, there's another spy movie you appeared in that is hugely loved. I don't know if it's popping immediately to the forefront of your mind, but it was Enemy of the State.
Yeah,
by
is
Tony
that a
Scott.
spy movie? I guess they're all spies.
Yeah, it is.
I
Yeah.
love that movie too. That was so fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that was really fun.
Yeah, I would just like to know about working with. We've had actually, weirdly, I'm not sure why, so many people who've worked with Tony Scott, but I would love to know just your memories of very legendary director being directed by him. You're playing the Ruby's clerk in the film.
Yeah. Well, I had worked with Tony Scott on a commercial.
Okay.
And I knew how, after working with him on the commercial, I knew that he was friends with and obsessed with Helmut Newton. So I know that he likes, that's why all the movies, all the girls have red lips. It's like a kind of, if you look back at it, it's a Top Gun, everything, red-lipped ladies. And so I remember auditioning for Enemy of the State, which I just watched the other day, by the way.
Oh, nice.
And I just kind of I think that was my rubber dress, and I wore that with the lips, and I was like, and I got the job. And it was actually a friend of mine, David Marconi, who'd written it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he told me that he got permission from, I don't know who these agencies are. It's Rand, whoever the government agencies are that have this information to give him. And at the time, the reason he was allowed to write about those technologies is because they were 20 years out of date.
Okay.
That's what he told me. So that was then. So somebody's watching us right now. But it's so easy now because we literally set cameras up all right on our faces. So I got the job, and it was really cool because it was they were just starting to do that shot that they did in The Matrix, where they set the still cameras up in a shape so that you could seamlessly go from film to the shots in the still cameras to rotate somebody in air, right? And that's what they did with that thing. So it was again a lot of work because of the special effects, like the Bond movie that we did a week on the poker game, because to shoot poker in an exciting way, you have to have the shots to be able to cut it together and tell that story. So same with that. And I got to ad-lib a lot with Will Smith. So I was like all that, oh, oops, that was a lot of it was ad-libbed, which was fun because he was so good about that. And I think that scene was in the trailer, and I remember hearing that Will Smith was upset about that because he was like, that's not what the movie's about. And I was like, meanwhile, that trailer made it look like that was what the movie was about.
Co-starring Ivana.
Yeah, exactly. So again, a boon for a young actress.
And also, I think of your stand-up background, and then he's doing all the sitcom work with Fresh Prince, a handful of years before. I wonder if part of the reason that scene does feel so memorable, and probably the reason they put it largely in the trailers, is there is that back and forth between the two of you that feels very energetic.
Which is hard to do. Thank you. And that's hard to do. I don't know where I had the balls to do it, but I did. It's hard to do when you don't have a lot to do. It's not like I have a whole, the whole point of my character is that this is not somebody he knows. And that's when all when the bit of business happens that makes all the rest of the action unfold. Right. So by design, it shouldn't be much, but yet you still have to have a human connection and energy between these two people to care.
Yeah.
But that's also because he's so open. He was so friendly and so giving as an actor. He was amazing. He was great. He was just riffing off of me. But there could be if it were somebody else, they could have been like, who do you think you are? That also happens.
Right.
So that's, he's the boss. It's a testament to who's at the top with how everyone else behaves. And both with Will Smith and Daniel Craig, you feel safe to do things.
It's also a testament to him as a performer, especially at that period, because that's kind of at the rise period where you've got Independence Day and, Men in Black. He could still be at that point where it's like, I don't want to kind of give up any of the spotlight because I'm not comfortable with where I am quite yet.
But look at even who he is as a person. Like, he's somebody who's been working on himself very publicly and very outspokenly all the time. Do you know? Like, he is not somebody who, look, he's a human being, but I don't think that his ego rules him. Or at least he's trying not to. I think he has so much confidence as to his worth that, and those real McCoys are the ones that give you the space. Because they're not threatened by anything. You know what I mean? Like, they're the ones that trust that everyone being amazing is amazing for everyone, including them, because they get most of the spoils anyway.
Of course, yeah.
So it was beautiful. I really enjoyed it.
Well, the other film I had written down is you're part of, I'd say, like the British canon when it comes to films now.
Yeah, it is.
Popping in, it is. Love Actually is something
that's another one.
It gets played every year in my house, and I'm pretty sure most houses in the UK play it every year.
Oh, in America.
I didn't know it traveled so far.
Which
I didn't
is
know.
crazy because it doesn't hold up. Oh my God. The Americans love this movie. And I wonder how far it goes, because people really love it, which is surprising. It's not surprising. I'm just saying, given that some of the themes aren't as politically correct as before, that it's still somehow, we're like, yes, we understand, we've moved on, but we are connecting to all the other stuff in it, like all the love in there.
I rewatched it like just last year, and there were bits that jump out as, maybe they don't hold up now, but it is still, there's a lot of heart to it. Yeah, there's a lot of heart to that film.
It is not, there's no malice in it.
No, I completely agree.
Emma Thompson is just doing amazing work in that movie as well.
Oh God, I could get teary just thinking about her in that role. Oh my God. And then what happened in the end? Did they break up, or did they try to work it out? And in my head, I never, when they pick them up at the airport, I mean, I think that they've shot it so that they don't make it, but I think they should make it.
I think it's kind of ambiguous, if I remember correctly. That could be my
It's
memory.
a little, you're right. It's kind of like, it's not good.
No, it's not great. They're not in a healthy place.
Not good, but yeah.
Probably need to go see someone for that. I think you might need to.
And which I am for. I think they should. They do. Everyone's really good in that movie, and the things that are frustrating. And
well, you pop up as part of a trio of American. It's written down as Dream Girls on IMDb, which I find
that is what was in the script.
This is you, Alicia Cuthbert, and January Jones. Great little scene you have together with
Alicia
Chris
Cuthbert.
Marshall.
Yeah.
Yes. A fun little moment there, and then you're in the airport later as well. I think as well. You pop up at the end there.
No. Then it's Shannon.
Is it Shannon?
Shannon Elizabeth and Denise Richards, isn't it?
Yeah, Shannon Elizabeth comes at the end because she's the fourth one we're talking about, like the hot one.
Yeah.
We're just chopped liver, but there's also the hot one, So yeah, that was really fun. And we were in London shooting it, and I was the only Midwesterner from Michigan, so I slapped on like a bit of a oh my God Michigan accent, and it was my idea to do the thing about like say stuff in an English accent.
Oh.
And I was like, say this, and then we'd repeat it,
Well, just sort of, we mentioned it, but what are your thoughts on being part of this beloved film? Like, is it another one that gets cited back to you a lot, Love Actually?
Yes, all the time. And again, not like some big splashy, I guess I'm just really lucky to be in these couple of these movies that mean a lot to people. And like, I don't know how, like, do you think they'll be watching Love Actually in 20, 30, 50 years? Like, is it, I don't know. But if so, who's so lucky? How many movies are there like that? And that is, for me, it's Elf and Love Actually, because I also hear from people all the time, just watch Love Actually again. Oh my God. Or people that I knew, people that I meet We're like, I didn't know that was you in Love Actually, or people who see me and they're like, you're in Love Actually. Like how also a long time ago. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that sort of wraps me up for spy questions. You've got some other like spy credits. I mentioned Chuck. I just stumbled on a credit I just saw for a TV show I've never heard of. Called, I'm just trying to find it now. Secret Agent Man. I'm guessing you played a spy in that one too.
Oh yeah, I was a spy there too. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I did play some spies.
You got some spy credentials.
I do have some spy credentials, but see, I was trying to play them off.
And you got the killer outfits too, so you got that lined up.
I know, I do. And you know what? The truth is, I like playing stuff like that, especially at that age. Now that I'm older, I'm a mother and I've just lived so much longer. Which I'm sure is just like the normal progression. Now I want to just play like no makeup characters that are like deep and have all these like obstacles and life struggles and whatever. But man, did I love putting on those crazy costumes and thigh-high boots and cutout dresses and leather and rubber and stuffing bras. And so like that, I loved doing that. Like I really enjoyed it. I love still a costume. I'm ordering a rubber dress, talking to the designer as we speak, just to have in case I need one. You know?
I'm doing the same thing.
Okay. Yeah.
There we go. I had a question about an early comedy role because Seinfeld is a very important show to me. And
I'm doing a Seinfeld podcast tomorrow.
No way. Wow.
There you go. Well, I don't want to trip over your material, but I would love to know about just working on that show, getting that job, because that show is such a phenomenon at that point, but also you have a lot of scenes with Jerry. I would just love to know about shooting those.
Well, this is a great story because that was like really my first job.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in and auditioned, and it was Eastern European accent, the first of many that became my bread and butter in my life. And I am grateful for it. I also enjoy it. I love slapping on that accent. And I had a callback, and Jerry Seinfeld was there. Now, at that time, I, of course, was aware of Seinfeld, but I wasn't watching it because I was of the age where I was not showing up on a Thursday night at 8 p.m. to watch or whatever it was to watch TV because I was out. I promise you. And this is before TiVo and recording devices in TV, right? So I'd seen some episodes. I was very aware, obviously. And so when I went into the callback, and I'm very green, like I'm still modeling pretty much at this point. I go in and there's Jerry Seinfeld. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you'd be here. And they're like, well, I am the producer of the show. I'm like, I didn't even know what that meant. Do you know, like it was so, I wasn't like, well, that makes sense. I was like,
yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about, but okay. So we do the scenes. And then they weren't sure on who the actor was going to be. So maybe they were deciding which accent it was going to be. Like maybe it was going to be, you know, a French guy or an Eastern European kind of vibe. And so because of who they got to be Milos, I got to be hired. And I had to kiss Jerry, and I'd never done any of that stuff. And that show also ruined me because they were so tight. And this is the second to last season. Yeah. That was a well-oiled machine. Like I was like, wow, this is what this is. And then you go on to do other things. And by the way, nothing wrong with these other things. They were just starting up.
Sure.
Friends was the other one that was like very, like I think they only worked 3 days a week because they were like, we got it.
Yeah.
And so that was really, that was amazing. And at that time, every single job I got, and that was my first one, like I cried when it would end because I really enjoyed what I did for a living. And then I want to say I went back again for another taping because my boyfriend at the time was friends with Shoshana, who was Seinfeld's girlfriend at the time, Jerry's girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
So we went again, and everyone was so nice. Oh my God. And and Elaine. Like they kept getting fed like they were just constantly punching it up. It was really good. I mean, like, I don't even remember Larry David there, and he would have been there, right?
I think he just left for that season. I think he left
he'd
at
gone.
season 7.
Yeah.
And I did see, how many seasons were there? 8 or 9?
9.
Okay, so I did 8. Okay, then never mind.
You mentioned like the getting fed lines. I mean, did your scenes change at all?
No, mine didn't, because this is more for them. This was like the
Sure.
main guys. They were like, okay, now say this one. Now, it was just like watching Masters. Talk about a master class.
Right.
Huge difference on even other established shows compared. Like, it was, you could see why something like Friends and Seinfeld became Friends and Seinfeld. It was lightning in a bottle.
And you're in a rarefied air of people who appeared on both.
Am I? Come on,
I think
really?
so. Yeah, there's not a lot of crossover.
I'm a lucky girl.
Hmm.
Because I have these stories and this fun. This was so great.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned like sort of your first roles. You're going back to sort of Jerry Maguire. You got that there as well. Some great things to be learning, like very early on in your career. Enemy of the State is very early on too. Like, a great trial by fire.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I have a couple of questions to sort of wrap us up, Ivana. The first one, and I like to ask this one because I think it's important. Is there a piece of work that you've done that you're particularly proud of that people didn't necessarily get to see that people should check out?
The first thing that I was super proud of would be, there's 3 things that I can just think of the top of my head for different reasons.
Sure.
The first thing was, again, I'm playing Eastern European, and that is this movie with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Monica Potter, Head Over Heels. It was just so much fun to make, and I got to be funny. That they even cut a lot out, because like they just kind of would like give me my own takes to try different things. So this is like leftover of my comedy beginnings before I just became a killer. And then, so Head Over Heels, it's silly. It's like, but I think that still like young girls always find it, because it's about 4 models living in New York. But so fun and special to me. And then Banshee, which is more recent. Oh, and Mind of the Married Man. But people did see that. There are 2, HBO shows that Mind of the Married Man did pretty well at the time. It was coming on the heels of like Sex and the City, and it was when people weren't talking about what was on Mind of the Married Man because it was not politically correct, but they were talking about it. And then Banshee, did you want me to tell 10 things, or I'll finish it?
As many as you'd like.
Yeah, keep going. It's fine.
Banshee, because of how much we did for so little. It was, it was so violent and so over the top, and the characters were so deep. Like the acting was really good and the writing was really good, yet it was a pulpy, graphic novel-y, very ridiculously violent piece of kit, and a lot of people did see it, and the fans are very loud, but and I wonder if people go back to it because things are becoming more soft again. So I wonder if people are going to crave that level of violence. Like, I don't think you can make that show today.
Right.
So if you're into kind of funny violence, meaning it's so over the top that it's, we know it's not, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And then the last thing I did before the pandemic, because I did it all through my pregnancy in the first 2 years of my son's life, which is the show called The 100, which is really sweet. And I probably have like the most following on social media because of how loved that show is. So again, mostly because I'm getting to play because the show has like so many kids on it. There's like adults and kind of younger actors. Like it was awesome to be like, cool, you be hot, I'm freaking pregnant. And they wrote the pregnancy into the thing. So I got to just be like a sassy, tired, badass ex-Navy SEAL, still gun wielding, still fight scened, pregnant person. So it's just really cool. And my character's just really I have no time. I have no time for anybody's nonsense, which is just kind of fun to play, you know?
Well, I appreciate you've had time for our nonsense.
That's right.
Oh yes, I have all the time for your nonsense because this was great for me because it's like my life is so different now being with my family here, and I love my life, and I'm very selective now on the things I want to do. I've mostly been doing like animation, voiceovers and stuff
Sure.
because I don't want to disrupt the family, and it would be very disruptive. So it better be so good if I'm going to, move away and leave my kid here in school and like. So this is beautiful. I loved my whole life then, and I love my life now. So this trip down memory lane is very welcome.
Well, I just also noted you were also on Charlie's Angels, the TV show. So another spy.
Yeah, certainly a badass.
You are lining up your spies.
I know. I mean, I am a spy, and given what's going on with Russia, they might need some more spies that look like me.
Well,
I mean, in movies.
Oh, no, for sure. Yeah.
You're not signing up to go into the field.
I am not. I am most definitely not.
And they are listening, of course, as we noted earlier. Everyone's listening. All right, to take us home, Ivana, the last question I'll have for you, and this has been asked for everyone that's ever been on this show, every guest, Bond alumni, of which you are a part of that family. Ivana, what is your favorite spy movie of all time?
That is a really good question.
We often get that face. Stumped face.
Okay. Short answer, Casino Royale. Long answer, I was really touched by that movie with Tom Hanks and my beautiful Shakespearean actor. You know who it is? It's coming.
Mark Rylance.
Mark Rylance. What was the name of that movie? The
Bridge of Spies.
I was like, there's a bridge in it. There's spies in it. Bridge of Spies. That movie was really touching to me. And I'll say, and I need to look it up, Ben Kingsley is in it.
Yep.
And he's listening to people, like he's playing it's a foreign movie.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it was Czechoslovakia. I don't think it was Russia, but whatever. Communist Eastern Europe. And it's so sweet. I'm so bummed. Maybe it's not even him. Maybe it reminds me of him because I want to say it was a foreign movie, and it's so beautiful, and it's about spying on your neighbor at that time, where this guy seriously gets out his typewriter and just sits here and types about everything that this couple is talking about.
I feel like someone's mentioned this premise to me before on Twitter, and I'm trying to think what it is. It's going to bug me now. People are listening and being like, "It's blah," and none of us can figure it out.
Damn it! I'm sorry, I've ruined the end of your podcast.
Well, to be fair, you did also answer
Casino Royale.
Well, you answered Bridge of Spies and Casino Royale. They're pretty solid answers as far as answers go.
Yeah.
It's not The Lives of Others, is it?
Yes.
There we go.
How did you know that?
I will tell you how I figured it out was Googling spy movie typewriter couple. There we go.
Keywords.
And who's in it? Because maybe it's not Ben Kingsley, but it's somebody that reminds me of him.
Ulrich Mew?
You can see why.
He has a definite Ben Kingsley vibe to him.
Yeah. Oh, the lives. It's so beautiful. I really liked it. But that's also because I'm Eastern European. And I'm like that was happening,
That is a movie that is actually brought up by a lot of guests, The Lives of Others. It is actually one that it's not necessarily a, carved in stone one that every person is going to think of when you say spy movies. They're going to say Bond or North by Northwest or something. But The Lives of Others is one that has a lot of fandom within the spy community, the spy fandom community.
Okay. Look at me. I'm like a part of this.
There you go.
And all the fancy answers.
You've been a spy so many times now. You've obviously got a high caliber of film you like.
I think I remember one of my first boyfriends I had, one of the reasons that I fell in love with him was because he said I looked like a secret agent. And I was like, oh, I felt seen.
So you're saying I should use that one?
I'm not saying you shouldn't.
Okay.
Well, Ivana, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. It's been a pleasure having someone on finally that killed James Bond. I think you're the first person we've had on the show that's done that. So
feels good.
It does.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Pleasure was mine.
The pleasure was absolutely ours. Ivana,
Yeah.
thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Mwah.
Well, there you go, folks. That was our chat with Miss Ivana Miličević. And once again, we want to thank Ivana for taking the time to speak with us. It's always good to chat about all things Casino Royale.
Yeah, no kidding. We've actually had a fair number of Casino Royale interviews on the show, and every one of them has offered a really interesting insight at a different angle of this production for a movie that I think we genuinely love a lot.
Yeah, there aren't many Bond films, there aren't many spy films that really break out of the genre to what I would call just a list of the best films ever made. And if you were going to tell me to pick one James Bond film that broke out of that mold, it's Casino Royale.
Yeah, and also like I remember at the time, obviously there was like endless amount of speculation about Daniel Craig. Like that's where kind of all the hype of Casino Royale was about the casting of Daniel Craig.
Sure.
But it felt like at the time there was less of kind of pomp and circumstance surrounding the other actors in the movie, which was not the case when you got to Quantum and movies like Spectre and Skyfall, where they made a big deal about who the co-stars of the movies would be.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really fun, I think, to catch up with a lot of these actors who maybe were a little overshadowed by the Craig casting in 2006 and 5,
Sure.
but now are getting to kind of have their desserts of celebration because the movie has become such a iconic classic.
For sure. They'll live forever thanks to this film, no matter how big or small the role. But speaking of big roles, let's talk about Valenka. Let's talk about Ivana's chat with us. Cam, what was a highlight for you?
I thought one of the really interesting things was the way that she examined kind of the psychology of Valenka. The idea that, like, you know, we asked her about, like, why did Valenka stick around? Like, why did she not hit the road after, you know, her arm was going to be severed and she's failed in an attempt to kill Bond? Like, it seems like things aren't going great. And the way she kind of presents it is like, you know, being someone in your late 20s and just believing like this relationship is everything to me. Like, why would I ever walk away? It's a sort of thing that, like, I think you could see people poking holes in this character for that and being like, well, this doesn't make sense. This character would leave. But you have, you know, the actor who played that role explaining psychologically why, in her mind, Valenka would never have left. It would not make sense to her to have left at that point in time. I just really liked hearing her explain that and how, you know, it was a decision very consciously made in every scene she's playing as to what is going on kind of beneath the surface of the character.
Well, it's, you know, I think you and I could both agree that you do make weird choices in your 20s.
20s? 20s, 30s, 40s?
10s, noughties, I don't know, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I held on personally to a relationship that went on far too long. I know exactly what that's like. Yeah, I why am I still here? What am I doing?
I'm like the Lashifra.
Yeah, you're going to chop off my arm in a minute.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm probably going to just gnaw on it knowing you. But yeah, like I thought that relationship was the be-all and end-all of my existence, and I stuck around far too long. Now, it didn't end up as badly as this one does, but hey-ho, still pretty poisonous in its own way. So I completely get that mindset.
Yeah, like it's always interesting when you talk to actors about kind of breaking down either a scene or a character arc and kind of where they are coming at it from, because I think it's very easy for people to be dismissive given the type of movie. You know, a James Bond film, a superhero film, whatever. Yeah. They tend to not assign the level of effort put into the performance that they might for, you know, There Will Be Blood or a prestige drama film, something like that.
What are you talking about? The Actors in Diamonds Are Forever New. Like, this is premiere filmmaking right here.
Well, you know what? Go back to our interview with Bruce Glover. There was a lot of thought put into that performance of Mr. Wint.
Hey, I made a joke and you just proved me to be wrong. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, one thing I wanted to point out, apart from the fact that the mohawk would have looked fabulous.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
It would. I mean, it definitely would have been attention grabbing, but I think maybe that was what they were trying to avoid.
I guess so. I wonder if it's like, because you want in those scenes for Eva Green's character to be the one that kind of grabs everyone's attention when she walks into the room wearing the dress. But if you've got Valenka walking with like a blonde like mohawk, like that would be a real focal point of attention. So maybe they don't want that kind of back and forth division of attention.
No, I don't think they did. But the thing I wanted to bring up was, and I mentioned it off top at the start of the episode, is Valenka is one of the only people that actually got to kill James Bond. And this has been pointed out to Ivana over the years, so she's fully aware of her prestigious place in the Bond canon. But I just think that's such a weird but fabulous thing to give to someone. Like, that is quite the feat.
It is a rarity
Mm.
because usually people put Bond in circumstances that are kind of easily escapable.
Yep.
And this was a case where she pulled the trigger. It didn't necessarily work because there was someone there to save Bond through means that the average person would not have, but she succeeded. And actually, you know, it's funny I mentioned Bruce Glover a moment ago because that's something Wynton Kidd did as well, where they got Bond in the casket, you know, in the fire.
Yeah.
They succeeded. The fact that someone removed the casket to pull Bond out to interrogate him over the diamonds is, you know, obviously saves his bacon, but ultimately Wynton Kidd were successful as well.
Yeah, actually a weird bit of symmetry there. And another thing I wanted to bring up that I was very keen to ask about was that Ursula Andress photo.
Yeah, yes.
And I mean, much as a little bit of me was disappointed that Ivana says she basically, you know, she had that training as a model. She just worked the table, as she said it basically, which I totally get. But it maybe it's just a little bit of like cosmic energy there, because the fact that they basically reenacted the same photo accidentally is crazy.
It is eerie. Like, it's such a coincidence.
Mm.
And it is a coincidence, as we learned, but just like, holy smokes, do the two photos like echo one another. And yeah, it's fantastic.
Like, holy smokes in sort of in that kind of way. And it is kind of weird, but we're not saying it's incorrect. That I can absolutely buy that she was in that dress, just, you know, making it work, and they took a bunch of snaps, and that's how it is. But I mean, they both look great, so it ended well for all of us.
Absolutely. And it was just encouraging and nice to hear once again that that these Bond productions are like very pleasant for the actors and the crews working on them. I'm sure there's like one or two movies along the way that we'll cover at some point where the shoot was maybe a little rougher than usual, but this one, just the way that she was so nostalgic, talking about the experiences, spending all that time in the Bahamas and the other locations, you just get the sense that, like, while there was a lot of pressure on them because of, you know, Craig's first film and what that could mean at the box office, that they had a legitimately good time making the movie.
Yeah, and you could definitely sense that from what Ivana was telling us. And I was going to say, and I'll actually just sit here and sort of talk through it. I was going to say it felt like a very collaborative set, but I don't think it was.
No.
I think it was a supportive set. I think, like, if someone needed help, that help was there, and there was obviously a production budget behind it to help that too. But yeah, we spoke about the character of Valenka and what Ivana wanted to do with it, and some looks that she wanted to put in to sort of portray some angst or anguish or something like that. And that was shut down a lot by Martin Campbell, which, you know, as an outsider, I completely get, because it's not a Valenka 007 film. It's a James Bond 007 film. I totally get how you want to have that separation there. But a part of me still kind of thinks it's these little things like that add flavor to a film. And it's a hard line to walk, because I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, well, Casino Royale could be better.
Sure.
But yeah, so that's it's a give and take, because I'm sure she felt very supported on the set, but I almost would have liked to have seen what maybe could have been done with the Valenka character, because she's given a lot of like key shots. Like, she gets some key moments that you don't really forget. So there's like that turn at the bar and stuff like that. But I don't know. I wonder what it would have been like if she had been given a little bit more depth.
I wonder also if it's just a matter of runtime, because Casino Royale is quite long. And at that point, the idea of making a Bond film that's like 2 hours and 40 minutes was probably not something they were going to commit to. They didn't realize that No Time to Die would change that, you know, a decade plus later down the road. But I mean, the thing about the Valenka character is you give a little more time and you're going to get more insight into the relationship she has with Lashifra.
Mhm.
And that would just, to me, make the movie more interesting. Would it play better to a mainstream audience? Maybe not. Maybe they'd be like, this is slowing down the pace of the movie, because Casino Royale, despite being like 2 hours, 20 minutes, moves really, really well.
Yeah.
But I think like the thing about a Bond movie is, even if your character isn't as fleshed out as you'd like, they stick around kind of the imagination of the audience. And I think the fact that, we're talking about Valenka now and people are still interested in that character, they still will mention her as a significant part of that movie. It's not a huge role, but it's a memorable one.
No, she still gets asked about it. I get the impression from Ivana that this is probably one of her most talked about roles.
Yeah, and Ivana's a bit of a chameleon, because I have seen her in a lot of things over the years. When I was doing the research for this, I really admired her ability to kind of switch into different types of roles. Like, I'd seen Casino Royale how many times? I had never realized that she was the lingerie salesman at the start of Enemy of the State. And she talked about, working with Tony Scott on that movie and bouncing off of Will Smith, finding that camaraderie in a scene to kind of enliven what could be a very kind of set up the business kind of scene.
Sure.
And then, I, of course, had seen her on Friends and Seinfeld. I had never clocked that this was the same actress every time. So I think it really shows her ability to kind of disappear into these characters and yet, in each case, make them very memorable.
Which I imagine is her adding her own little twist to what's on the page a lot of the time.
Yeah.
The thing is, I could see this character of Valenka just disappearing into the background.
Sure.
And in a way, she's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
She's not supposed to stand out that much, which is why the sort of things like the mohawk was dropped. But you go back to it and you still think about what could have been and what you do your own headcanon stuff, which I think it just means that she is, I think, giving a little bit of life to the character, because I could see in another Bond film this character being completely forgettable.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are countless Bond films where there's a character who gets so little to do. Because Bond fans are so obsessive, they will, that character's got their own, wiki page and all that sort of thing. But Valenka feels much more, I think, front and center. When you start, lining up the characters of the movie, she ranks much higher on the list than maybe some others would.
For sure. Well, there you go, folks. That was our chat with Ivana Miličević. But Cam, we are in Las Vegas. I do feel like partying. What are we talking about next week?
Well, speaking of parties, Scott, it is going to be our 3rd birthday. And what better way to celebrate than with some furry friends? I'm talking about 2001's Cats and Dogs.
I can't think of any more of a SpyHards way of celebrating our own birthday than talking about Cats and Dogs, Cam. I cannot wait.
I think this is going to be a lot of fun. For those who aren't aware, this is a children's film from, as I said, 2001, about super spy cats versus super spy dogs. Some celebrity voices like Tobey Maguire and Alec Baldwin. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to join us next week as we celebrate our 3rd birthday, 3 years of spying hard, and talk about cats and dogs. And if you like what you heard on this interview, please consider leaving us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. And do not forget to follow us discreetly on social media at SpyHards. That's SpyHards on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But until next week, folks, Cam and I are going to slip into some skimpy cocktail dresses and really work those casino tables.